different options to that. There's your MasterCard, there's your Apple Pay, there's your Square terminal or whatever. And so there's reasonable options there. And so I think eventually crypto will get into that niche. That's like one of the very last things. It's like VoIP as opposed to one of the first things.
I want to hear more about what applications outside of money you're most excited about within crypto. And, we focus on often 10-to-1 use cases. Something becomes much cheaper, like email versus snail mail. But I'm curious as to the 0-to-1 applications that unlock a fundamentally new capability like the internet with Wikipedia or, phones, you had cameras and now you have Snapchat, or you have GPS and now you have Uber. What are the 0-to-1 applications going to be for crypto?
Some of these are less sexy and less fun, but they're very infrastructure related. Routers, metering bandwidth, metering disk space and compute in distributed storage and computational grids. You can imagine that 10 years from now, the question of where do you host your website will be a nonsense question, because you'll just say on the internet. Right? I just write the piece of code, I drop a fraction of a crypto coin into it, and then it goes and it buys the file storage and it buys the compute power and it buys all the pieces that it needs to instantiate itself and serve whatever customers show up on the web. So I think that's one interesting use case. Just micro transactions that current money can't address. On the flip side, I think there is the sound money thing, which is played up, but it's the revenge of the Swiss bank account. So it's the ultimate safe haven. If the Jews have to leave Vienna today, they're not carrying gold out. They're carrying Bitcoin out. So I think that's another example. A third one would be, I think, setting up large distributed networks that are kind of bootstrap themselves. And I mentioned solar power earlier as one. Bandwidth would be another, sort of replace Verizon with a distributed grid of Wi-Fi access points. You could even have self-driving cars. If you had a future, we have a lot of self-driving cars driving around and they're communicating with each other. You could see them paying each other for rights of way. I want that stoplight green right now instead of red. And you bid against each other, literally. Congestion pricing on the fly, very efficient. Again, these are not super sexy end user applications, but I think these are ones that are uniquely enabled by cryptocurrency. And then finally, there's a set of things that maybe we want to see exist, but the governments of the world, for whatever reason, don't allow them, but are legitimate applications. Like a lot of economists would tell you that prediction markets working across the board would be incredibly useful for society. Yet, because they get caught up in sweepstakes laws and sports betting rules and this hodgepodge of state laws in the U.S. and international laws, you don't really have working prediction markets. They can't get the liquidity to make accurate predictions. And if we could have good prediction markets, then we could start posing them questions like, what is the best way to address climate change? Is it A or B? And the prediction markets can opt into that. Actually, they're not good for that one, but there's others. It's hard to test that one.
Cool. So I was trying to explain Bitcoin to my mom. I should have used the Jews in Vienna. She would have loved that. And I was explaining sort of the tribal nature of it, explaining Bitcoin versus Ethereum. I was explaining Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash. I was like, Mom, there was a civil war. People aren't playing around here. Everyone versus Ripple, and all these various sub-battles. And what's interesting here, I say this all to say that crypto is not just a technology phenomenon, it's a social phenomenon.
It's a religion.
Yes. And the social phenomenon, the religion, is perhaps just as interesting and fundamental.